Good morning. It's all about pensions and the way they're calculated, and it's all to do with inflation. So let's just get a little bit more detail on that. Now, we're all familiar with the rising cost of pension contributions and, of course, rising inflation. But now the combination of those two things is leading to a legal challenge at the High Court. 6 of the country's biggest unions are claiming that plans by the government to change the way public sector pensions are valued is illegal and will cost their members thousands of pounds each when they come to retire. Now, let's look at the figures in detail. Last June, the Chancellor George Osborne announced plans to replace the retail price index, which includes housing costs, with the less generous CPI measure to upgrade public sector pensions. Now, unions claim that for their members who are in so-called defined benefit schemes, it's equivalent to a 15% cut in the value of their pension. And even a report from the Department of Work and Pensions in February admitted the CPI link will reduce the value of pensions by £83 billion and that pensions will be worth 12% less by 2027 and 20% less by 2050. Well, joining me now is Gail Cartmel, the Assistant General Secretary at Unite, who's been negotiating with the government over this change. Good morning, Gail.
Good morning.
What do you base your figures on? Because they're slightly different to the DWP's, aren't they, of 83 billion?
Well, we base our figures on average, RPI is 1.2 greater than CPI, the lower inflation index that government has chosen to use, and that means overall a 15% cut. But that's also been confirmed by Lord Hutton's Commission on Pensions. He estimated the value, rather the reduction in benefits, pension benefits, to be 15%.
Now, inflation proofing is unaffordable in most private sector pensions. Why is it therefore OK for public sector pension schemes to apply a different measure?
Well, you mentioned earlier that we negotiated this amount with government, or this change with government. That's not true. It was announced by the Chancellor in the June budget. It isn't evidence-based. It is, in fact, a measure to tackle the deficit, which wasn't caused by our members or their pensions, but was caused by the banks and the casino-style gambling they took, the risk they took much earlier. So we think that this is both a breach of social security legislation, but also, really importantly, a broken promise. Previous governments promised the RPI as an inflation protection measure, as indeed have most of the private pension schemes that our members are in. And when our members look at our pension calculator on our Unite website, they can see really the cost to their retirement for themselves.
Now, it might be a technical answer, but this is previous government's promises, not something in law. You're taking it to the High Court, so you must think you have a strong case.
Yes, because as I've said, we think this is a breach of social security legislation, but also contractual. We think there's a contractual breach here.
Now, isn't it a good idea, though, during times of a downward economic global problem here, to look at things like public sector pensions and to address the issue? Surely the government has a case to make.
Well, nobody can say that the current pension arrangements are unaffordable or unsustainable because the costs are decreasing over years. We are very open to evidence-based negotiation, but this is really a pension grab by a government that wants hard-working public sector workers to fork out from their savings for their retirement to attack the deficit.
OK, Gail Cartmel, thank you very much at Unite.